Well, the Examen, I think, existed before St. Ignatius in some form or another. But St. Ignatius, and I'm not exactly sure what those original distant sources were, but the Examen was central to the spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius, who was in the 16th century in Spain. He was a soldier, and he was wounded in a sense. The Examen begins with a wound. He was wounded in the leg in a battle. And while he was recovering, he began to pray and look for resources in prayer. And eventually that led him to the spiritual exercises, a way of training Jesuits, but then also increasingly a way that was available to lay people. And it's been adapted and put in different terms, and there are 3x5 card versions of it, and there are book-length versions of it, and so on and so on. But St. Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits, is sort of regarded as the father of the Examen. The word examen is Spanish for examination. And Ignatian spirituality sort of focuses, or initially, on the examen of conscience. It's a way of examining your sins. But even in the spiritual exercises, which seems to our ears maybe preoccupied with sin, the language is kind of military in the Ignatian exercises, a little rigid. He seems to be constantly focusing on sort of an inventory of the things we've done wrong. But even then, underneath that, there's the sense that God is present in everything we do, including all the moments of gift. And so it becomes a way of praying our lives, thinking about what has happened to us each day, and realizing that our lives are sacred text. I think there was a sense of kind of militancy in the age, and there was a sense that the church needed to defend itself. But I mean, part of this was just the language that Ignatius knew also as a soldier. I mean, he was a soldier. It might be a matter of language, of how we read through this language. What a lot of contemporary versions of the exercises do is sort of read that language as metaphorical. It's like the Psalms, right? The Psalms are full of this language of enemy and so on, and that reflects partly its culture and time. Because ultimately the approach of the Examen and of the spiritual exercises is joy, that God is present in everything we do, it's the principle and foundation, right? That everything is created for God's glory. All created things give glory to God, and whatever we can do, in concert and right relation with those things gives glory to God. So music and art and eating and sleeping, and everything that is good and natural and right gives glory to God. Well, it seems to me nothing is more important than realizing that Christ is here and Christ is now. The point of the Examen is that there are burning bushes everywhere. There are miracles happening everywhere. That water is always being turned into wine all around us, and that the miraculous is everywhere, and that it's happening in our lives and calling us here and now. I mean, in a sense, the great attraction of the Examen, and it's ironic given that it's such a traditional form, is for people who think of themselves as spiritual but not religious. And I respect those people, and I'm, in a sense, writing to those people, and I think those people are calling us in the church to something. People don't understand that the claims of Christianity are urgent and alive and here and now. And the Examen says, look, your life is sacred text. Your prayer is autobiography. And I think this is a way of helping people sort of enter the tradition without having to walk into a church. I mean, I think they should walk into a church, but it's a way in. But even for those of us in the church, that we are constantly surrounded by grace. Grace is pouring down on us, and we turn away from it. We don't want it, or we don't recognize it, or we don't remember it in our lives. And I think that very, very many of us are hopeless. We're despairing. We're lost. We're lonely. Our lives are not satisfying us. We pursue material things. We pursue our careers. We get educated. We publish books. We we do the things we do. And those things are not bad. They can be good, valuable, but they're not enough. And we need to examine our lives to turn and see that emptiness first, that there's something empty in us that's not being filled. But then also deeper down, say, no, there is something beautiful and mysterious in my life too. There is something, if I can just endure this loneliness and this emptiness and be honest with myself about it. There's this living water that can fill us.